Congressman, good to see you.
Great to be with you, Jason.
Let's talk about something we haven't heard a lot in DC, and that is problem solving. You're a member of this Problem Solvers Caucus. We haven't addressed it on this program. I know you've been around for 3 or 4 years, but tell me what the caucus is doing and whether you think it's actually made a difference.
Sure. Well, the Problem Solver Caucus is a caucus of today 56 members of the U.S. House, half Republican, half Democrat. We have started, we've basically built a Senate chapter. They call themselves the Common Sense Caucus over in the Senate. And that's actually 8 Republicans and 8 Democrats. And we are meeting regularly and discussing important issues. And really the CARES 4 package was really the result of that bipartisan, bicameral discussion. It's very important that when you come up with a solution, it's not just working in your chamber, it's got to work in both chambers and be acceptable to the executive. The hard work that was done in the fall, we announced the bicameral bipartisan CARES 4 package actually right after the election. It was actually passed into law before Christmas. So that was very proud of the reaching across the aisle, getting things done and trying to solve real problems for Americans.
You obviously have a reputation for that. Let me ask you about CARES and a follow-up to any stimulus that might be out there, because a lot of Texans are wondering, will there be more stimulus? Former President Trump and now President Biden, they want the additional $1,400 added to the $600 the House has already passed. Do you see that happening? And if so, when?
Obviously been in discussions with Republicans, Democrats in the House, and with senators, Republicans and Democrats, and actually the White House over the last week. And I think you're really going to have to see a more targeted approach, sort of let's send everybody a check. I've actually, believe it or not, gotten complaints in my district. Hey, why am I getting a check? I haven't gotten a pay cut. My hours haven't been hurt. I actually got a raise. I got a bonus. Things are actually good for my family. This isn't right. And you have to appreciate that sense of, hey, let's help people that need help. And that's certainly where I am. And so I think we need to be thoughtful and targeted in how we think about aid, rather than just sort of blasting it out and knowing that we're sending too much money to people that don't need it and not sending enough money to those who really need it.
Right. How long might that take, though, to figure that out, to solve that problem?
Well, we're working on that as we speak, and so you're watching Republicans in the House and the Senate sort of say, hey, let's target it more. And then you're seeing some Democrats sort of quietly discussing with the White House, hey, let's try to target this. Let's try to take the price tag down to something that we can all afford. I mean, because remember, we're borrowing that money. We're going to get that back one day. It isn't free. And so to think, hey, we're just going to spray aid out and it'll all be fine, don't worry about it, I think is irresponsible.
I want to ask you about moving forward, because you're widely seen as somebody who's kind of a middle of the road type of a guy. The FBI just a few days ago put out that warning about potential violence from domestic extremists. I'm curious how you think the country moves forward from here, especially after what we saw in DC this month.
Sure. Well, let me first say I condemn political violence on the left and the right. This is not the way that our country should solve problems. We have a political process to solve problems. We have a democratic republic. People can vote for their representatives and then send them to go discuss and hash out those issues. I think that there are certainly some very raw wounds right now, around this country and in Congress. And I'm certainly working to try to bind those wounds up, because there are important things that we need to do as a country to come out of this pandemic and rebuild our economy.
Politically speaking, too, Congressman, former President Donald Trump, he's really kind of become a wedge inside the Republican Party. Some people, like Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, suggested that it's time that the GOP moves on. But many Trump supporters are not ready for that. How do you think this is going to end?
Well, look, you've had former presidents since George Washington, and they have an influence in the country's future. And over time, that influence fades, and as that's just the course of time. And so I think that, you're going to continue to see President Trump be a very influential figure within the Republican Party for years to come. But I think that, different issues and different challenges are in front of us, and we're going to address those as best we can as a nation.
Finally, Congressman, I want to ask you about the Four Country Caucus. You likely might ascend to a leadership position inside the caucus. This is something different from the Problem Solvers Caucus. Tell me briefly what this is.
Sure. Four Country Caucus is about 25 members of the U.S. House, approximately half Republican, half Democrat, all post 9/11 veterans. Most of us served in Iraq and Afghanistan. As you know, I served as a Marine in Iraq. It looks like I'll be the Republican co-head of the Four Country Caucus, and my Democrat counterpart, Jared Golden, another Marine infantry squad leader in Iraq and Afghanistan from Maine. And so we work together. We're a more diverse ideologically group than the Problem Solvers, but we got some good things done last Congress, helping Gold Star families, working on responding to the health pandemic by expanding the Reserve Health Corps, other things. And we're going to work to try to make our country a better country and govern by working together, reaching across the aisle, building on our common bond as veterans.
All right, Congressman, it's always good to talk to you. Thanks for the time.
Great to be with you, Jason.
Congressman, that was fantastic.